Hi, this is Donna Reish with video number 4, and this video is about our directed writing approach at all levels. Hopefully you have your Meaningful Composition sample book in front of you. If you are a vendor or a curriculum provider, this book has been given to you to show you meaningful composition that correlates with the videos here provided. If you are not a vendor or a curriculum provider and you do not have this sample book in front of you, that's okay. Hopefully you can still watch and learn a lot, but also we have 2 weeks of each book provided for you to download and try with your students, or to look up some of these things that I'm talking about. You'll see all of the things that I'm talking about in here also in those samples. So that's available at the Character Ink store, 2 weeks at each book provided for you to try before you buy. This video is going to focus on our directed writing approach at all levels. When I talk about a directed writing approach, I'm talking about no vagueness. I am talking about everything crystal clear. Our writing program is so incremental and so laid out that your student will be able to write any type of writing when he's done with it. When I talk about the directed writing approach, I'm talking about helping your student know every step of the way what to do. No writing idea books, and not even a little background, but instead every single thing that your student needs to know to complete that project. We have incremental lessons, and that's what I want to show you in just a moment too. Incremental lessons. So in other words, if this project is at the beginning of a book and it needs quotations in that project, your student will be taught how to include quotations on a limited basis in a very short manner. And then as he progresses, the next time he needs to use quotations in a project later in the book, midway through, more quotation lessons, but more developed. And maybe this time, instead of just using beginning speech tags and closing speech tags, he is going to learn how to include a colon with an opening speech tag. And so then at the end of the book, he has another project towards the end that has quotations in it. That project will have a more extensive quotation lesson in it. And if it's a high school lesson, by the end of that book, if it's a high school book, by the end of that book, that particular lesson will actually have split quotes, colons, and even how to know which speech tag to use to have the most effect. So we have all incremental lessons built in to Meaningful Composition as your student needs those lessons. That takes us to this one, which is kind of similar to that, but it doesn't matter what the skill is that the student needs to complete that project. Meaningful Composition has it built into it. Our books are fairly long. They are between 300 and 400 pages, I believe, depending on whether you're talking about a 4th grade or an 11th grade. And with that, they are only 1 semester books each if you do 30 minutes a day of writing. If you want to spread a book out over 2 semesters, you can, and then your student would just maybe work 20 minutes a lesson. But especially in junior high and high school, we recommend that you do 1 book per semester. But all the skills are given, and that's why our books are so long. So whatever skill is needed is taught with that particular lesson. So I want to just walk you through a little bit about how these skills are taught as they are needed. I want to show you in the book what I mean and how a student is prepared to write whatever we're asking him to write. So I want to take you through a lesson from each level. So let's start with page 51, week 7 and 8, an original creative writing essay, The Fish Speak or the Birds Speak. That begins on page 51. All right, again we have what I described last time, our overview box on page 51. Tells the student the expectations of the whole project. This is really important because they can come back and look and see what's expected and what they will be doing. At the write on, these are the additional skills. These are some of the things that we're going to teach them in order to write this particular project. Now, previously to this, more than likely, they have the sample that's here. I'll show you that sample. Find that over here on page 58. More than likely, this sample shark essay of Shelby the Shark was already used as a sentence by sentence outline over given material. So they're already familiar with it. They've already worked with it, some themselves. But now they're going to do their own. Now this is an early book. I believe that this is in I think this is in the 5th grade book, maybe 5.1. So at this level, we are going to not have them research yet because we're going to focus on some other skills. They do research in this book, but for this project, we are going to give them the materials. So let me walk through and show you some of the pre-writing skills that are given. Page 53, they can choose any of these creatures to write about that they want. A bald eagle, a rainbow trout, mourning dove, northern pikes, greater roadrunner, Atlantic wolffish. They can choose one of those, any one of those fish or birds to write about in this particular project. And the material is given to them in note form. So actually the pre-writing skills that have to do with this, they will choose their fish or bird, and then they will come here and choose the areas. And again, that whole paragraph break, they choose, and we can go back to our overview box, they choose 3 areas if they're a basic student and 4 areas if they're an extension student. All of our books are multi-level, meaning that we have something for the beginning 5th grade writer, and then more elaborate assignments, more expectations of the same thing, but the greater expectations for the more advanced writer. And the beauty of this is that if you are using one of the first semester books that has like story writing, research writing, essay writing, all throughout that whole book, suppose your student is very strong in creative writing, he can do extensions in all of those projects, but maybe he has trouble with research writing. And so then you could just use the basic level for all of those. And so it's just, when you get into the upper levels, the differences are a little bit more established. Like a student in a high school might have to have 2 sources, but an advanced student might have to have 4 sources in which they learn to merge sources better. So anyway, here they are going to choose their 3 if they're a basic student. So they might choose habitat, appearance and size, birth and mating. Those would be their 3 paragraphs. Back to foolproof paragraph breaks. This method really works. All they have to do is say 1 paragraph is going to be about habitat, 1 paragraph is going to be about the appearance, and 1 paragraph is going to be about birth and mating. And then they use these notes to write from. So that is a little bit of the pre-writing that's given there. On 56, we teach them how to write in the first person because this is a first person essay. They're going to act like they are that creature. On page 57 and 58, we have the samples. I mentioned before that all of the new projects have samples for each one. This is one of the best writing tools that you'll find, and it makes these make our books extremely long. That just adds more pages, especially in the upper levels when we have the sample research report in one of the 10th grade books. The sample alone is 3 or 4 pages long. We're adding that to the books because these approaches work. It really does work to teach students from samples. So on page 57, we show them a sample outline. On page 58, they see a sample essay. On page 59, they're going to practice their pre-writing skills. Then they're going to write. Then they're going to learn to write an opening and a closing. And then they're going to learn how to do our checklist challenge, which I'm going to be talking about in the next video. So that is a little bit about the pre-writing for that. Let's look at some of the pre-writing that's given for another project. Let's look at the pre-writing skills that are given for story writing on pages 73 and weeks 8 and 9, beginning on page 73. Again, we use samples, first of all, to have the student write from, and then we use the samples to teach from also. So on 73, we can see that this is at the top, sentence by sentence outline and short story over given material. This means we're going to give them the source and they're going to write from it. So we can see over here on page 74, paragraph of body A, paragraph of body B, paragraph of body C, and paragraph of body D. And these paragraphs are provided for them to outline from and then to write their own cheetah and gazelle story using this source. Let me just point out a few things that are built in that are kind of subtle but extremely strong teaching methods. The first thing is on 74. You can see in the brackets in bold font following each paragraph how it shows the student how whatever happened in that paragraph makes that paragraph a paragraph. So the first of all, we have the opening, then we have the initial attack. Then when we have the cheetah choosing his target, we change paragraphs. Finally, when we have the gazelle tripping and then getting away, that's the resolution, that's the next paragraph. A lot more about that in just a minute. On page 75, one thing that I forgot to say about the given material is that we have it laid out, paragraph of body A. I did talk about the topic of paragraph and then the outlining lines. Normally, you can see on page 74, when we give a source, we tell the student how many words he should use per sentence to outline. And we teach how to do all of that. And I'm going to talk about that in another video, our how-to lessons specifically. But 3 to 5 words for each sentence. But then all of a sudden, we have some unique situations. And this is why it is important in giving the source to use that source to teach from. So on page 75, we can see how you may use up to 6 words for sentence 2. This is teaching them, you know, when you're out there and you're getting your own source, if you have a really long sentence, you might need more words to outline that. The next paragraph has, in parentheses, after sentence 6, you may plan to use a semicolon or other compound sentence creating trick, or create one simple sentence. And so if they don't know about semicolons yet, they don't know about how to do compound sentences, then they can decide to do something else. Giving a student a source, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind if you don't use something like our program that's laid out. First of all, it needs to be at their highest reading comprehension level. Like it should be an easy read for them, because it has to be at their writing from level. And so our grade specific books take care of that problem, and we choose materials that are at their reading, easy reading level and at their writing level. Thirdly, though, we need to be sure that they know how to handle unique situations. Lengthy sentences, compound sentences, colons, quotations. What do they do when they encounter materials that have those things in them? And so we teach that too. And then you can come over here and see how we have an SSS 5 lesson, super short sentence of 5 words or fewer. And we teach them how to use it in story writing. Use it for emphasis, use it for excitement, use it for a change of pace. Then we teach them about animal movements. And we teach from that story that in this paragraph it said this. What would you do? What would you do if you were doing an original story? How would you describe the size? How would you describe the motions of that animal based on the size of the animal, the speed, the intent, the emotion, words that are specific to that animal, and so forth. We have animal movement words for them to choose from. We have a sample of it rewritten on page 82. And then we go into the next lesson, which I'm just going to briefly describe this because I'm going over on time. But in the next one, on page 91, they are going to do their own. They have used a given source to outline, to write from, and to learn from. And now they're going to come over here on page 91 and do their own animal escape story. We always have suggestions for them, but they can choose something else that they want to. Then we teach them how. How do you, on pages 92 and 93, how do you develop your story action? And guess what? We're going to use that source. We're going to use that source to teach opening calm. There's a sample. To teach less calm. There's a sample from last week's passage. Fast, even less calm, progressive complications, and so forth. We are using the source that they just wrote from. They're so familiar with it that now we can really use it as a teaching method. Then on pages 94 and 95, they have to determine all of their pre-writing strategies. What your animal is, what your opening will include, what your setting will be, research some of that, what the obstacles will be, and so forth. Then we teach them how to create scene descriptions and action without using being, helping, and linking verbs on page 96. And we teach them how to use description. We teach them how to research and what they need to know about their predator and what they need to know about their prey on pages 100 and 101. Nature descriptions, and then they outline, and then they write. So you can see how we use samples that are given to write from, and then we teach all the skills that are needed for that particular writing project in an incremental fashion. So when it's time for them to write, they are ready to write. Thank you.